See, this game has it all wrong. It makes far more sense than Star Trek the Motion Picture. And it's a lot faster. If this were to be an accurate representation of the 1979 less than exciting return of Star Trek, it would be 4 hours of the camera lovingly panning up and down the Enterprise. The thing is, I actually like that movie. I'm not entirely sure why, because it's slow and it makes no sense, but for some reason it's just kind of cool. This game is cool for obvious reasons. For one thing, it's on the Vectrex and has a Star Trek overlay, which looks fantastic. And I just accidentally shot Deep Space Nine. Sorry. And also, it's pretty fun. This is a good game to break out at a party with friends, especially fans of Star Trek. Even though it has more in common with the TIE fighter shooting scene in Star Wars than anything in Star Trek. And especially anything in Star Trek the Motion Picture. V'ger wants to learn about the Vectrex. See, that's all they needed to do is show V'ger the Vectrex. He'd have been thrilled and just gone away, which is kind of what happened at the end of that movie anyway. What the hell is that movie about? You see, the whole trick to watching Star Trek the Motion Picture is that you have to use it as a pre-party for Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, because it's like 3 hours long. You could easily throw back a number of drinks and play several dozen games of Star Trek the Motion Picture on the Vectrex, while Star Trek the Motion Picture the movie is playing in the background. Because you don't really want to pay close attention to it. It's way too long and could easily be condensed into 30 seconds if it was actually made to be exciting. And it's the perfect length to let those beers take effect so that when the Wrath of Khan does start, you're ready to party with Kirk and the crew. Because I'm pretty sure they were bored in the motion picture as well. But let's get back to this game. It's pretty straightforward, as you can see from the gameplay. You're basically just moving the, spaceship around the screen and shooting things. But for a 1982 video game, it's pretty smooth. Oh no, it's the Klingons! Back when they were bad, before Worf, who was good. Until Deep Space Nine, then he was bad. The Klingon mothership is a bit erratic. Sometimes it's really easy and just sits there and kind of looks at you while you shoot it. Other times it flies all over the screen and wastes you. So that's the game. You shoot enemies and you have a force field. They don't call it that in Star Trek. You have a shield. You throw up your shields. I should know this. I've seen every Star Trek a lot, except for Star Trek V. Once was enough. They should have just gone back in time and saved some more aquatic creatures. That was awesome. Showing up in 1980 San Francisco with 80s pop jazz playing in the background, looking for nuclear vessels. Star Trek IV is a masterpiece. Why is there not a Star Trek IV game on the Vectrex? We get the motion picture, but not Wrath of Khan or Star Trek IV. And don't even get me started on the new Star Trek, which was a fun action film, but didn't anybody find it odd that the Beastie Boys were in Star Trek? Two great things that just don't go well together. And set up just the whole damn is, if they're going to rewrite the entire universe and just basically slap the face of every Star Trek fan for the past 40 years, they may as well have just introduced R2-D2 and C-3PO, because the Star Wars franchise has already bottomed out. So what the hell, you may as well combine the two and make something interesting. They should lock the new Star Trek writers and Jar Jar Binks in a closet somewhere, throw away the key, make Star Trek VII where Khan returns as Mecha Godzilla, fighting Star Destroyers piloted by Klingons. And just call James Cameron to direct it. There you go. Biggest film ever. Star Trek VII, The Wrath of Mecha Godzilla. And no, Star Trek VII is not Generations, because that didn't actually have a number. And of course, the video game should be released on Vectrex with an overlay saying Star Trek VII, Wrath of Mecha Godzilla. And make it pretty much like this game, except instead of fighting the Klingon mothership, you fight Mecha Godzilla. So just put a few more vectors on the Klingon thing and you pretty much got them. I've gone off subject, but I'm trying to get to the part of the game here where it picks up speed and gets really cool. But I'm very passionate about this because the new Star Trek scares me. Uhura is not Uhura unless she's been in Truck Turner. Nichelle Nichols gives the best delivery of the words Sears Roebuck in history. They need a game based on that movie. And Black Belt Jones. Jim Kelly, 2 down, 1 to go. Alright, let's talk about the instruction manual, which was clearly written by somebody who has never actually heard of Star Trek. It does specify which enemies are the Klingons and the Romulans. The Romulans are the ones that look like bats. The part that I like is here under gameplay on page 9. As Captain Kirk, you view the action from behind the windshield of the Starship Enterprise. It's called the view screen. Do you know why it's not called the windshield? Because there's no wind in space. And realism has always been very high on the Star Trek list of priorities. And besides, if you're actually hit by an enemy torpedo, the only thing that happens is all the computer consoles start sparking and throwing off a lot of smoke. Followed by shaking, blinking lights, and possibly screaming. Oh, and people jumping over railings. Until Captain Kirk saves the day. Unless he's an admiral for that 1 or 2 movies, I forget. So, the game picks up speed once you start getting up into 30,000s. The enemies become harder to hit, and the Enterprise, even though it has photon torpedoes that lock on to targets, you don't use them, you're just using the Millennium Falcon-style cannon, which is not actually on the Enterprise. Never mind. They never use gun turrets on that thing. This couldn't be less like Star Trek, but it's still kind of fun. It's definitely a cool title to have for the Vectrex, but nowhere near as cool as that Star Wars arcade machine from back in the day with vector graphics. Remember that one? That was cool. So fans of Vectrex probably actually remember Star Trek the Motion Picture. It's a fun game to play every now and then. Yell at Scotty, tell him to give you more power, boost the shields, don't blow up the space station. Star Trek, the motion picture, the video game. They should have more product tie-ins, like Star Trek, the motion picture, the video game, the flamethrower. Whoa, wrong movie. Hang on. V'ger!